Ammon is a Semitic kingdom from the Bronze Age period occupying the east of the Jordan River, between the torrent valleys of Arnon and Jabbok, in present-day Jordan. The chief city of the country was Rabbah or Rabbath Ammon, site of the modern city of Amman, Jordan's capital. Milcom and Melech are named in the Bible as the gods of Ammon. The people of this kingdom are called children of Ammon, or Ammonites. Biblical narrative. The first mention of the Ammon in the Bible is in Genesis chapter 19 verses 37 to 38. It is stated there that they descended from Ben-Ammi, a son of Lot, through incest with his younger daughter. Ben-Ammi literally means, son of my people. After the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, the daughters of Lot had sexual relations with their father, resulting in Ammon and his half-brother, Moab, to be conceived. This narrative was previously considered literal fact, but is now generally interpreted as recording a gross popular irony by which the Israelites expressed their loathing of the Moabites and Ammonites. However, according to the same source, doubts remain as to whether the Israelites would have been willing to attribute such an irony to Lot himself. The Bible record does not mention anything else of the nation until centuries later, when they invaded the Rephaim lands east of Jordan, between the Jabbok and Arnon, dispossessing them and dwelling in the place. The Ammonites refer to the giants as Zamzumim. Shortly before the Israelite exodus, the Amorites west of Jordan, under King Sihon, invaded and occupied a large portion of the territory of Moab and Ammon. The invasion of the Amorites created a wedge and separated the two kingdoms. The Israelites were commanded not to attack Ammonite land. However, throughout the Bible, the Ammonites and Israelites are portrayed as mutual antagonists. During the Exodus, the Israelites were prohibited by the Ammonites from passing through their lands. The Ammonites soon allied themselves with Eglon of Moab in attacking against Israel. Throughout, the Ammonites kept claiming their part of Transjordan, their former territory occupied by the Israelites after obtaining it from Sihon. During the days of Jephthah, the Ammonites occupied the lands east of the river Jordan and started to invade Israelite lands west of the river. Jephthah became the leader of the victorious campaign against the Ammonites. The constant harassment of the Ammonites on Israelite communities east of the Jordan were the impetus behind the unification of the tribes under Saul. King Nahash of Ammon started to enslave the people of Jabesh Gilead, and he threatened to gouge out the right eye of all the inhabitants. Eventually this led to an alliance with Saul and the Israelites, and a battle between the two nations, resulting in the victory of Israel and the forming of the Israelite kingdom. During the reign of King David, the Ammonites humiliated David's messengers, and hired Syrian armies to attack Israel. This eventually ended in a war and a year-long siege of Rabbah, the capital of Ammon. The war ended with all the Ammonite cities being conquered and plundered, and the inhabitants being killed at David's command. When the Syrians of Damascus deprived the kingdom of Israel of their possessions east of the Jordan, the Ammonites became allies of Ben-Hadad, and a contingent of 1,000 of them served as allies of Syria in the Great Battle of the Syrians and Assyrians at Karkor in 854 BC in the reign of Shalmaneser III. The Ammonites, Moabites and the inhabitants of Sai formed a coalition against Jehoshaphat of Judah. The coalition later was thrown to confusion, with the armies slaughtering one another. They were subdued and paid tribute to Jotham. After submitting to Tiglath-Pileser, they were generally tributary to Assyria, but have joined in the general uprising that took place under Sennacherib, but they submitted and they became tributary in the reign of Esarhaddon. Their hostility to Judah is shown in their joining the Chaldeans to destroy it. Their cruelty is denounced by the prophet Amos, and their destruction by Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Zechariah. Their murder of Gedaliah was a dastardly act. They may have regained their old territory when Tiglath-Pileser carried off the Israelites east of the Jordan into captivity. Tobiah the Ammonite united with Sanballat to oppose Nehemiah, and their opposition to the Jews did not cease with the establishment of the latter in Judea. They also joined the Syrians in their wars with the Maccabees and were defeated by Judas. According to both 1 Kings chapter 14 verses 21 to 31 and 2 Chronicles chapter 12 verse 13, Naamah was an Ammonite. She was the only wife of King Solomon to be mentioned by name in the Tanakh as having borne a child. She was the mother of Solomon's successor, Rehoboam. The Ammonites presented a serious problem to the Pharisees because many marriages between Israelite men and Ammonite women had taken place in the days of Nehemiah. The men had married women of the various nations without conversion, which made the children not Jewish. The legitimacy of David's claim to royalty was disputed on account of his descent from Ruth, the Moabite. Relation to Assyria. Ammon maintained its independence from the Assyrian Empire through tribute to the Assyrian king, at a time when nearby kingdoms were being raided or conquered. Inscriptions describe the Ammonite king Baasha ben Rehubi's army fighting alongside Ahab of Israel and Syrian allies against Shalmaneser III at the Battle of Karkar in 853 BC, possibly as vassals of Hadadezer, the Aramean king of Damascus. In 734 BC the Ammonite king Sanipu was a vassal of Tiglath-Pileser III, and Sanipu's successor Puduilu held the same position under Sennacherib and Esarhaddon. An Assyrian tribute list exists from this period, showing that Ammon paid 1/5 of Judah's tribute. Somewhat later, the Ammonite king Amminadab I was among the tributaries who suffered in the course of the Great Arabian Campaign of Ashurbanipal. Other kings attested to in contemporary sources are Barakal and Hisalel, the latter of whom reigned about 620 BCE. Hisalel is mentioned in an inscription on a bottle found at Tel Saran, Jordan, along with his son, King Amminadab II, who reigned around 600 BCE. In the Persian, Hellenistic, and Roman eras, little mention is made of the Ammonites through the Persian and early Hellenistic periods. The Hasmonean dynasty Hyrcanus founded Qasr al-Abd, and was a descendant of the Seleucid Tobiah dynasty of Tobiah mentioned by Nehemiah as an Ammonite from the East Jordanian district. Their name appears, however, during the time of the Maccabees. The Ammonites, with some of the neighboring tribes, did their utmost to resist and check the revival of the Jewish power under Judas Maccabeus. The last notice of the Ammonites is in Justin Martyr dialogue with Tropho, where it is affirmed that they were still a numerous people, concentrated in the south of Palestine. Language. The few Ammonite names that have been preserved also include Nahash and Hanun, both from the Bible. The Ammonites' language is believed to be Semitic, closely related to Hebrew and Moabite. Ammonite may have incorporated certain Aramaic influences, including the use of BD, instead of commoner biblical Hebrew, sh, for work. The only other notable difference with biblical Hebrew is the sporadic retention of feminine singular t, economy. Like its sister kingdom of Moab, Ammon was the source of numerous natural resources, including sandstone and limestone. It had a productive agricultural sector and occupied a vital place along the King's Highway, the ancient trade route connecting Egypt with Mesopotamia, Syria, and Asia Minor. As with the Edomites and Moabites, trade along this route gave them considerable revenue. Circa 950 BCE Ammon showed rising prosperity, due to agriculture and trade, and built a series of fortresses. Its capital was located in what is now the citadel of Amman. Archaeology. Inscription in 1972, during the excavations of a site called Tel Saran in northwest Amman, an inscription on a bronze bottle of about 10 centimeters tall was found. Scientific investigation has showed that the inscription dates back to 600 BC, and later concluded that it was a lyric poem written in Ammonite language. The poem talks about a drinking song, roughly translated to the vineyard and the orchard, or shall I be left behind and destroyed? He who says this rejoices and be happy that life is long, and shall I inflame myself with it and be ruined? No, it shall make me glad and bring joy for many days and long years.